What if I told you that the single biggest investment of your life, your home, might actually be making you poor? Yeah, that's the kind of bombshell idea that made Rich Dad, Poor Dad a global phenomenon. Today, we're diving deep into the book that completely rewrote the rules of money for millions of people, and we're going to explore why, even decades later, it's still one of the most controversial finance books ever written.
All right, let's just jump right in with the big one. This is the question at the very heart of Robert Kiyosaki's book. It's a question that's meant to make you stop and think. I mean, for generations, right? We've all been told that owning a home is the bedrock of wealth, the cornerstone of the middle-class dream. Kiyosaki basically looks at that dream and says, nope, that's the anchor weighing you down. Let's get into it. So how does he build this argument? Well, he wraps it all up in this really simple, but honestly super powerful story. A tale of two dads. One was his poor dad, his real father, who followed all the rules, great education, stable government job, a PhD, but he struggled with money his entire life. The other was his rich dad, his friend's dad, a high school dropout who became a multimillionaire. Their advice couldn't have been more different, and it forced a young Kiyosaki, and by extension us, the reader, to choose a path.
And here you can see the two paths, right? It's the classic clash. Poor dad's advice? That's the playbook most of us get handed. It's all about security and stability. You trade your time for a nice, safe paycheck. It's about playing it safe. Rich dad's advice is a total 180. Don't work for money, learn how to make money work for you. It's not about safety, it's about freedom.
Okay, so if you're going to follow Rich Dad's path to freedom, you have to do something kind of weird first. You have to forget some of the most basic financial words you thought you knew. It all starts with his totally radical redefinition of two simple words, assets and liabilities. And hey, fair warning, if there are any accountants watching, you might want to just, earmuff it for a second.
It's so simple, it's almost shocking. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. That's it. Full stop. So that house you live in, with its mortgage and property taxes and insurance and all the constant repairs, well, according to Rich Dad, it's not your biggest asset at all. It's your biggest liability. It's a giant cash-eating machine.
At this right here, this is Kiyosaki's whole explanation for why so many of us feel like we're just spinning our wheels in that rat race. He says we spend our lives buying liabilities, a bigger house, a fancier car, the newest phone, and we think we're building wealth. The rich, he says, do the complete opposite. They focus like a laser on just one thing, buying assets that generate cash flow month in and month out. Okay, so the goal is to acquire assets. Simple enough, but where does the money to buy them come from, right? This brings us to another one of Kiyosaki's big ideas, the Cashflow Quadrant. He calls it his map for how every single person on the planet earns their income.
So Kiyosaki basically breaks down the entire working world into these four groups. You get the left side, employees and the self-employed. So whether you have a job or you are the job, like a doctor or a freelance web designer, the point is you're still trading your time directly for money. If you stop working, the money stops coming in.
So the big move, the whole game plan, according to Rich Dad, is to get from the left side of that quadrant over to the right side. Business owners build systems that make money even when they aren't there. And investors? Well, they use their money to do the same thing, buying assets that work for them 24/7. That's the real difference between working hard your whole life and making your assets work hard for you.
Look, these ideas are super compelling, right? They feel like a total game changer. They promise this clear path out of the 9-to-5 grind, and that's exactly why the book became a massive bestseller. But you can probably guess what happened next. As the book's fame just exploded, so did the backlash. Financial experts, journalists, and academics, they all started picking apart the advice and the man who wrote it.
And we're not talking about gentle disagreements either. People came out swinging. Many called his advice not just simplistic, but dangerously risky. Some of the toughest criticism even questioned the whole story, suggesting that the legendary Rich Dad, the guy who was the source of all this amazing wisdom, might not have even been a real person at all. So the case against Kiyosaki really comes down to a few major points. First, the idea that his real moneymaker wasn't his investments, but the book itself. That he got rich selling the dream, not by actually living it. And second, that his advice actually pushes people towards super risky stuff, like speculative investments, while he totally dismisses time-tested habits like, budgeting and living below your means.
And maybe the biggest fight of all is over those definitions we talked about. Accountants and financial pros, they are quick to jump in and say, wait a minute. They'll tell you that on a balance sheet,
Your house is an asset, period. They argue that while Kiyosaki's cash flow idea is a useful way to think about things, it's technically wrong and creates a lot of confusion for people trying to understand where they really stand financially.
So, if the rich dad way is seen as too risky or even a little bit misleading, what's the other option? Well, his critics push for a path that's, let's be honest, a lot less sexy. It's all about slow, steady, proven financial habits. It's a path that is, frankly, a lot less dramatic.
Let's look at retirement accounts, for example. Kiyosaki tends to brush off things like 401ks as slow and restrictive, but pretty much every other financial expert out there will tell you that turning down massive tax breaks, and especially the free money from an employer match, well, that's not a strategy. That's just a huge mistake. And then there's the whole topic of debt. For Kiyosaki, it's this amazing tool you can use to get rich faster. But critics are quick to point out that he makes it sound way too easy and doesn't talk enough about the risk. Sure, high leverage can make you a lot of money, but it can also wipe you out completely. It's a double-edged sword, and he often kind of forgets to mention the other edge.
Even that amazing dream of passive income gets a reality check from critics. They argue that being a landlord or running a business is anything but passive. It's a job, an incredibly demanding job at that. You know, getting that 2 a.m. call about a leaky pipe or dealing with the stress of evicting someone who won't pay rent.
So what are we left with? We've got two totally different roadmaps to getting wealthy. One is this high-octane entrepreneurial thrill ride that's all about mindset and taking big swings. The other is a disciplined, slow and steady marathon that's all about proven systems and managing risk. So, which one is it?
You can really boil this whole debate down to mindset first versus mechanics first. Kiyosaki says you got to change your brain first, you have to adopt the mindset of an investor and learn to conquer your fear. His critics say, whoa, hold on, that's a recipe for disaster. They argue that you have to master the mechanics, the budgeting, the saving, the smart, diversified investing, before you can even think about taking on those bigger risks.
So where do we land on all this? You know, whether you love the guy or hate him, Kiyosaki's real impact is that he makes you think. He forces you to question the financial advice you've just always accepted as true. He makes you really understand the incredible power of cash flow from assets you own. But the controversy is also a huge reminder that his high-risk approach is definitely not for everyone. Ultimately, both sides actually agree on one absolutely critical point. The best investment you can ever make is in your own financial education.
And so, this whole thing really leaves us with a big question, a question for you to answer. Is the real key to wealth found in owning a specific thing, like a business or real estate? Or is it all about having a disciplined mindset, one that can build wealth with any system, even a simple one? The answer you pick, well, that's going to shape the entire financial story you write for yourself.